There is a woman who lives at the edge of a forest in Finland, far enough from the nearest town that the only sounds most mornings are wind moving through pine branches and the occasional call of a bird settling somewhere overhead. Once a week, usually on the same day, she walks into the trees and does not come back out until evening. No phone, no destination, no task to complete. Just hours, given entirely to the forest, with nothing expected of her in return. Before we go any further, I want to say something clearly, because it will change how you hear everything that follows. If your mind feels restless most days, if a low hum of anxiety sits quietly behind your thoughts even when nothing is actually wrong, that is not a personal failing. It is not weakness, and it is not something broken in you that needs to be fixed through more effort or more willpower. What you are likely experiencing is a nervous system that has simply been separated, for far too long, from the one environment it evolved inside of. Your body was never designed for glass, concrete, and fluorescent light for 10 hours a day. No one's was. This is a film about a different relationship with the natural world, one the Finns have quietly practiced for generations without ever needing to explain it or turn it into a wellness trend. There is a word for it: Friluftsliv. It translates loosely as open-air living, but the phrase itself barely captures what it actually means to the people who live it. It isn't a hobby. It isn't something reserved for weekends or vacations. It is treated as a basic, ongoing need, the same way food or sleep is a basic need, something the body simply requires on a regular rhythm in order to function well. Today we're going to walk through what the forest actually does to an anxious mind, why modern neuroscience is only now catching up to something Nordic cultures have understood instinctively for centuries, and 5 small, frictionless ways to bring a version of this practice into a life that may not have a forest just outside the door. Stay until the end because I'll leave you with a 2-minute test, a way to check in real time whether your own nervous system is quietly asking for more of this than you've been giving it. Let's begin. Slowly. Before we look at any specific habit, we need to sit with the idea underneath all of it, because without it, the habits will feel like one more task added to an already full life, instead of what they're actually meant to be: relief. Friluftsliv rests on a simple, almost embarrassingly obvious premise. Human beings spent the overwhelming majority of their existence outdoors, embedded in natural light, natural sound, and natural movement. The indoor, screen-lit, temperature-controlled life most of us now live is, on an evolutionary timescale, something that appeared only moments ago. Our nervous systems have not caught up. They are still calibrated for wind, for open sky, for the particular kind of attention that moving through unpredictable natural terrain requires. Here is where the science becomes genuinely fascinating. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute have spent years studying what happens inside the brain when a person moves from an urban environment into a natural one, and the pattern they keep finding is remarkably consistent. Activity in the amygdala, the brain's primary threat detection center, measurably decreases after time spent in natural settings, particularly forested ones. This isn't a vague sense of relaxation. It is a specific, observable dampening of the exact brain region responsible for scanning your environment for danger, for keeping your body in a low simmer of alert readiness, even when nothing is actually wrong. Think about what that means for a mind that spends most of its day in exactly the kind of environment that keeps the amygdala activated. The ping of a notification, the ambient noise of traffic, the visual clutter of screens and signage, and other people's urgency. None of it is individually dangerous, but collectively, it keeps your threat detection system quietly humming in the background. And a humming amygdala is precisely what produces that background static of anxiety so many people now consider simply normal. The forest doesn't calm the mind by adding something to it. It calms the mind by removing the 1,000 small demands an urban environment makes on your attention every hour, and giving your amygdala, for the first time in a long while, nothing urgent left to scan for. Let's walk through what this actually looks like, practically, starting with the smallest possible entry point. The Finnish woman I mentioned did not begin with a weekly forest ritual. Almost no one does. She began decades ago with something far smaller, standing outside her door for 2 full minutes each morning before doing anything else, simply feeling the air on her skin and listening to whatever sounds happened to be present. No goal, no destination. Just presence for 2 minutes before the demands of the day were allowed to begin. This matters more than it sounds like it should. Circadian and nervous system research consistently shows that the first minutes after waking set a kind of baseline tone for the hours that follow, in much the same way a single note can set the key for an entire piece of music. Stepping outside first, into real air and real light, before a screen, before a to-do list, before the day's first demand arrives, gives the nervous system a chance to register safety and calm as the starting note, rather than urgency. The micro-action here asks almost nothing of you. 2 minutes. Not a hike, not a change of clothes, not a plan. Simply step outside or stand at an open window if that's what's available to you, and let your senses register the air, the light, and whatever sound happens to be present, before you check a single notification. 2 minutes is the entire ask. The second habit builds on the first, and it concerns the particular quality of attention that natural environments demand of us, a quality researchers have started calling soft fascination. A city street demands what's called directed attention, the effortful, draining kind of focus needed to avoid traffic, read signs, and navigate crowds. A forest, by contrast, offers something categorically different. Gently varied natural stimuli, wind moving leaves, dappled light shifting across a path that hold attention effortlessly, without draining it, allowing the deliberate, effortful parts of the mind to finally rest. This is why a walk through a park can leave you feeling more mentally rested than an equivalent amount of time spent sitting still indoors scrolling. It isn't the movement itself doing the restoring. It's the specific, undemanding texture of what you're looking at and listening to. The practical shift here is simple. When you do step outside, resist the urge to fill that time with a podcast or a phone call. Let your eyes and ears do what they were built to do amid natural stimuli. Wander gently, without a task, taking in movement and light and sound without needing to analyze or respond to any of it. Even 10 minutes of this kind of undirected, natural attention can measurably lower the sense of mental fatigue that builds across a demanding day. The third habit concerns something almost nobody thinks about consciously: the sound environment we spend most of our lives inside of. Modern indoor and urban spaces are dense with what acousticians call anthropogenic noise, sound generated by human activity and machinery, humming appliances, traffic, overlapping conversations, none of it individually loud but collectively constant. The human auditory system, it turns out, treats sustained low-level noise as a subtle, ongoing stress signal, even when we've become so used to it that we no longer consciously notice it's there. Natural soundscapes function almost as an antidote. The specific acoustic pattern of wind through trees, moving water, or birdsong has been shown to shift the nervous system measurably toward a parasympathetic, rest-oriented state, the same physiological mode the body needs in order to properly digest, repair, and recover. This is part of why so many people describe forests as quiet, even though a forest is rarely silent. It is full of sound. It simply isn't full of the kind of sound that keeps your body on alert. The shift here doesn't require a forest at all. It requires noticing, at least once a day, a natural sound already available to you. Wind against a window, rain on a roof, birds outside even in a city, and giving it your full, unhurried attention for a minute or two, the way you might listen to a piece of music you love. This alone begins to recalibrate what your nervous system treats as background versus threat. The fourth habit is the one the Finnish woman practices most deliberately, and it concerns movement itself, specifically the difference between walking with a destination in mind and walking without one. Destination-driven movement, walking to get somewhere, keeps a portion of the mind occupied with planning, timing, and evaluating progress. Undirected movement, walking simply to be moving, with nowhere in particular to arrive, allows that same portion of the mind to finally go quiet. This doesn't require wilderness. It doesn't require hours. It requires a specific kind of permission. Choosing, at least once this week, to walk somewhere with genuinely no destination and no time limit, even if that walk only lasts 15 minutes around a familiar block. The nervous system responds not to the scenery primarily, but to the absence of an agenda, the quiet signal that for these 15 minutes, nothing is required of you except to keep moving and to notice. The fifth and final habit is the quietest of all, and perhaps the most important. It concerns weather, specifically our modern instinct to treat anything other than mild, sunny conditions as a reason to stay inside. The Finnish relationship with weather carries a well-known phrase, roughly translated as, "There is no such thing as bad weather, only inadequate clothing." It sounds almost like a joke, but underneath it is a genuinely different psychological stance. One where discomfort from cold or rain is treated as a minor, solvable logistics problem, rather than a reason to retreat entirely from the outdoors. This matters because so much of modern life has quietly trained us to associate anything outside of comfortable, climate-controlled conditions with something to be avoided. And in doing so, has shrunk the number of days we allow ourselves any real contact with the natural world down to only the mildest, sunniest handful each season. Stepping outside briefly, even in imperfect weather, properly dressed for it, reintroduces the body to a wider, more resilient range of natural conditions. And there is something quietly stabilizing about discovering, again and again, that mild discomfort is entirely survivable, even pleasant, once you stop treating it as an emergency. Here is the one idea that ties all 5 of these together. The filter the Finnish woman has used, without ever giving it a name, for most of her life. Before deciding whether to go outside on any given day, she asks herself only one question. What does my body actually need right now? Not what does my schedule say, not what would look productive, but what does my body specifically need in this moment? If the honest answer is stillness, she stays inside and rests without guilt. If the honest answer is air, movement, or natural light, she goes outside, even briefly, even in imperfect weather, without needing a bigger reason than that. This is Friluftsliv in its truest form, not a rule requiring daily wilderness immersion, not a rigid habit tracker, but a continuous, honest check-in with a body that, more often than most of us assume, already knows exactly what it needs, if we're willing to actually ask it and then listen to the answer. It's worth pausing here to notice something the Finnish woman never frames as sacrifice. She isn't giving anything up by spending an afternoon in the trees instead of catching up on messages, or by standing outside for 2 quiet minutes instead of reaching immediately for her phone. From the outside, it might look like she's choosing less, choosing absence over connection, stillness over productivity. But ask her, and she'll tell you it feels like the opposite. The hours in the forest aren't a subtraction from her life. They're the part of her life that makes the rest of it bearable. The quiet reservoir she draws from when the ordinary demands of the week start to feel heavy. This reframing matters because so many of us treat time in nature as a luxury to be earned only after every obligation has been met, when the research suggests almost the reverse relationship is true. The nervous system doesn't recover well on leftover time. It recovers on time that's been genuinely protected, however small that time is. There's also something worth saying about pace, because it's easy to hear all of this and quietly resolve to overhaul your entire relationship with the outdoors starting tomorrow. A weekly forest day, a complete digital detox, a total transformation. That impulse, however well-intentioned, usually collapses within a week, not because the person lacked commitment, but because it demanded too much friction too quickly. The Finnish woman's relationship with the forest wasn't built in a season. It was built across years, in increments so small they barely felt like habits at all. 2 minutes at a door, one undirected walk, one afternoon without an agenda. Lagom, in this sense, applies just as much to Friluftsliv as it does to any other part of Nordic life. Not too little contact with nature, and not an overwhelming, unsustainable amount either. Just enough, repeated often enough, for the nervous system to remember what it's been missing. Before you go, here is the 2-minute test, so you can try this today. Step outside, or to an open window if that's what you have. Stand there for 2 full minutes, doing nothing else, simply registering the air, the light, and whatever sound happens to be present, without your phone in hand. Then, notice, honestly, what shifted in your body during those 2 minutes, even slightly. A softening in the shoulders, a slower breath, a quieting of some background hum you hadn't fully noticed was there until it eased. That shift, however small, is information. It's your nervous system telling you, quietly and without drama, that it has been asking for more of this than you've been giving it. A calm mind was never built entirely indoors. It was built the way the Finnish woman built hers, one small, unhurried return to the outside world at a time, not as an escape from life, but as a return to the one environment your body has never stopped quietly needing. If this found you at the right moment, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Simply write, "I am returning to the forest." Let that be the quiet promise you make to yourself tonight. I'll see you in the next one.